What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Gage, and welcome to the channel. Today, I am excited to be showing off the Chronicles deck, the Fallen and the Virtuous All Foil Edition. This is the newest structure deck for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game that features the branded archetype, and this is it's a good time to be a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player. This is one of the best structure decks that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game has ever released, because not only is it all foil, so all of the cards in the structure deck are holographic, they're all ultra rares, but the strategy itself is incredibly competent. With 3 copies of the structure deck, you will essentially have every single thing that you need to have a fully realized and competitive strategy. And that is what I think has been missing from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game for a long time now. They have been trending in this direction of delivering really high quality products in the form of structure decks, with the last release being the Blue Eyes structure deck, which was actually a home run product. So I am glad to see that they are continuing the tradition and dropping banger after banger. And yeah, it is just a fantastic product. A lot of really good new support for the branded archetype that comes in the structure deck, as well as pretty much all of the other things that you will need. Now, naturally, no structure deck is perfect, so there are going to be certain things that you might need in order to bolster the strategy even further. But I think that for just 3 structure decks, you'll have pretty much everything that you need. So I'm excited to get this opened up. One of the great things about these products is that it also has the chance at having one of the cards in the structure deck. I believe there are, from a pool of 6 cards, that can either come as a secret rare, or if you're extremely lucky, even a Starlight rare, which I believe is 1 per case of structure decks. Not entirely sure what the ratios are looking like, but basically it's extremely rare, and if we can pull it, it'll actually be pretty expensive. So yeah, I'm excited to hop into it. So what we're going to do today is open the structure decks. We'll go over the card by card, and then I will combine the 3 to be able to show off kind of a variant of the deck that I would choose to play if I were to develop a deck to take to locals or just have fun playing with friends. Now, by no means am I a branded master. However, there are plenty of other channels that you can check out on YouTube for folks that dedicate themselves to the strategy, because branded, for one of those things, one of those types of strategies where it does reward you for high caliber gameplay. It is strategic in that there are many different lines that you can play depending on the type of hand that you have, and it really does reward skillful players. So I played it a little when the first version of the structure deck dropped, and I played a little bit of it on Master Duel, but I am no means a master. So, I'll give a bare bones what 3 copies of the structure deck will look like, maybe even some tips for some cards to bolster the strategy if you have a couple dollars, just to be able to make it that much better. But yeah, without further ado, let's hop right in, and please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. So let's go ahead and see what we're working with. So I do believe we have a paper playmat. I'll quickly open it up just so that we can kind of see what it's looking like. And this is just perfect for new players of the game if you don't actually have a playmat of your own. And there is Albaz and Ecclesia. And man, it looks awesome. I mean, if this was an actual playmat, which maybe it is, I would totally get it for the artwork alone. So that's pretty much it in terms of the playmat itself. So let's go ahead. I probably should have opened this from the bottom. Actually, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and grab it. There we go. And right off the bat, you can see this is actually an alternate art of the original version of Dogmatic Ecclesia, and this is the secret rare. So that looks to be the variant that we pulled. So yeah, if I can find the pull tab, we'll be able to get right into this deck. Oh, there's the pull tab. I always miss it, and it makes things a lot easier. So let's just quickly go over the card by card, and I'm going to adjust. There we go. So, wow. I gotta say, I'm not particularly a fan. This looks to be a screenshot because they recently dropped tidbits of kind of 5 to 6 minute-ish parts of an animation featuring the branded lore. And this appears to be a screenshot directly from those episodes. I gotta say, the animation has actually impressed me. I don't necessarily enjoy screen captures from episodes of an anime produced right onto a card. It looks fine, but it's definitely not my cup of tea. So that is the secret rare kind of upgrade that we have for the alternate art. And to start things off, we have Fallen of Albaz. This is kind of the linchpin of the whole strategy. And there is foiling. It looks like hollow bleed all over the entirety of the card. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of that, but you can't deny that, having all of these cards in ultra rare is just really cool to have in general. So this is the Incredible Ecclesia. So as you can see, this is the alternate art version of this card. So glad that it comes with the deck. Not sure if we'll play it in the actual full strategy. I'll take a look at all the cards afterwards in more detail. And there is Aluber, just one of the best normal summons that the deck has at its disposal. Blazing Cartesia, the Virtuous. Albion, the Shrouded Dragon. Guiding Quem, the Virtuous. Spriggan's Kit. From certain angles, it almost looks like Prismatic Ultimate rares. Tri-Brigade Mercurier. Great Hand Trap, searchable. Despian Tragedy. The Bestial Lobelion. So that's another great thing, is that there are just fantastic staples that actually come in the deck itself. So gotta say, I love that they included these. Bestial Magnamut. Bestial Saronir, which is actually one of the best Bestials in a pure branded strategy. Druis Worm. And there is the non-secret rare variant of Dogmatica Ecclesia. Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis, the Knighted. This is yet another alternate art. Dogmatica Maximus. Nibiru, the Primal Being. Great staple. Might end up making it in the final version of the 3x version structure deck. Keeper of Dragon Magic. The Fallen and the Virtuous. Just one of the strongest pieces of support that this deck has ever gotten. We'll go over it in a bit more detail in the actual deck profile. And Branded Fusion, just one of the most powerful fusion spells ever created. And we have Branded in White. Branded in Red, very powerful fusion spell. Branded Opening. Branded in High Spirits. Branded Lost. Branded Regained. Nadir Servant. Branded Bond. We have Fusion Deployment and Triple Tactics Thrust. This was actually a much-needed reprint, even though it did end up getting a reprint pretty recently in one of the quarter century sets. It was still actually relatively expensive for most of the versions. I could just be misremembering, but I do remember this got a reprint pretty recently, and it was still pretty expensive. So nice to see that it is nice and accessible, and it actually comes in a pretty cool alternate art. I love that the Tri-Brigades are being featured on here. We have Foolish Burial, Gold Sarcophagus, Super Polymerization. Feel like it gets reprinted often and it still continues to be a relatively pricey card, but it is a broken card, so it's only fair. Branded Retribution, Branded Banishment, Branded Sword, Branded Beast, The Black Goat Laughs. This was also a fairly pricey card prior to this reprint. Dogmatica Punishment, Fusion Duplication, and of course it comes, so that's it for all of the main deck cards. So it does look like it provides you with pretty much most of an entire extra deck right out the box. So this is, again, one of the other new pieces of support that the deck has received. The Dragon that Devours the Dogma. Just a really cool looking card. We'll go over what it does when we inevitably show it off in the deck profile. We have Mirror Jade, just one of the OG boss monsters that is still really good in Branded to this day. Albion the Branded Dragon, really good for the combos, as well as Lubellion the Searing Dragon. Alba Lenatus the Abyss Dragon. Titaniclad the Ash Dragon. Brigand the Glory Dragon. And Sprind the Iron Dash Dragon. And Rimbrum the Striking Dragon. And Granguignol the Dusk Dragon. So guys, that's it for the opening portion. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just quickly open up the others, just in case we ended up pulling one of the Starlights. Can't hurt to check beforehand. Oh, and it looks like we got yet another secret rare copy of Dogmatic Ecclesia. Maybe we'll end up getting the playset in this third box right here. And it looks like our other secret rare is Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis the Knighted. So those are the, it looks like, I'm not sure what the other cards that also can come in secret rare are. I believe that the new spell can come in secret rare. Triple Tactics Thrust can come in as a secret rare. But I'm not entirely sure what the entire pool of the alternate rarities could be. So I'm going to go ahead and through the editing power of editing magic, pause this, and then we will resume once I have built three, pretty much one deck using 3 copies of the entirety of the structure that we just opened. So I'll be back in just a moment. All right, guys, so now that I have the deck prepared, we're just going to dive into the deck profile. So, of course, we have to start with the one and the only Fallen of Albaz, the namesake of the deck that really is the glue to pretty much every single combo line that the deck has to offer. Very powerful card. If it's normal or special summoned, you could discard a card and fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters on either field, including this card, but you cannot use other monsters you control as material. It's a hard once per turn, but the reason that you play 3 is because it is just, you are going to be churning through this through most of the combos, and you want to always ensure that it is in rotation. The strength of the card is the fact that you are have the capacity to use your opponent's monsters as material, and there are many monsters in the extra deck that you will be able to summon using monsters that your opponent controls. So, you know, the flexibility that it provides in the extra deck is a strength because of the fact that there are just so many different targets that you can go into. So yeah, Fallen of Albaz, just know that it is pretty much imperative to play at 3 copies. And the thing is, we are going to be getting support in a new version of this card that may end up replacing this entirely, but at least for now, we're going to stick with the 3 copies. And of course, we are playing 3 copies of Aluber, the Jester of Despia. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a branded spell from the deck to your hand. So, of course, that is usually going to go ahead and add you something like your branded fusion if you do not already have access to it. Though theoretically, you can also use it to add something like your branded in red, which is another fusion spell. You could use it to add your branded retribution in certain instances. So the card is flexible in what it can search. But it does also have a secondary effect that many people forget, where it says, while if a face-up fusion you control is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card, while this card is in the grave, so leaving the field because your opponent used a certain effect. You can target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, special summon this card, and if you do, negate the targeted monster's effects until the end of the turn. So just a nice little additional interruption that makes it so that your Aluber has even more utility. So 3 copies is a must. I'm also playing 2 copies of Blazing Cartesia. Just a fantastic card all around. It says if you have Fallen of Albaz in your field or grave, you could straight up special summon this card from your hand. So that is always going to be strong because of the fact that it then has a quick effect where you can fusion summon one level 8 or higher fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or your field. And then during the end phase, if a fusion monster was sent to the grave this turn, you could add this card from the grave to your hand, which you could either then use for follow-up or you could use for discard fodder. So all around, the fact that this gives you the ability to quick effect fuse makes it so that there are going to be instances in which you will be able to dodge certain types of targeted effect negation, which just makes it so that your combos are that much more likely to be able to go through. Blazing Cartesia is also something that you are able to cheat out with something like Fusion Deployment because of the fact that we are playing the Grand Guignol in the extra deck, which specifically mentions the Blazing Cartesia, the Virtuous, in its name. So, this is just a fantastic card to go with. I don't necessarily think that you need 3 copies, but 2 is a sweet spot for me. I'm also playing 2 copies of Guiding Quem the Virtuous. This is always treated as a Dogmatica and Despia. If it's normal or special summoned, you could send a Fallen of Albaz or one card that mentions it from the deck to the grave. If a card leaves the extra deck, then you can target one Fallen of Albaz or one monster that mentions it in your grave, and you can go ahead and special summon it. So this is usually going to be a card that you end on because of the fact that when if a card leaves the extra deck, you could either trigger that yourself through something like your Mirror Jade, or if your opponent ends up, link summoning, fusion summoning, synchro summoning themselves, that will trigger the Quem. And most of the time, you will have an Albaz in your grave that you will be able to special summon on your opponent's turn to then go ahead and trigger the Fallen of Albaz to fuse with their monsters, which is just an incredible piece of interruption. So 2 Guiding Quem is just a nice sweet spot. I don't necessarily think that you will need multiple, especially since you don't want to necessarily clog on having too many normal summons. I believe the current build that I ended up going with is 51. 2 is just a nice number, but you don't want to have too many normal summons. And of course, I'm playing 1 copy of Springen's Kit, just a powerful card all around. If you have a fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz as material in your field or grave, you could special summon this card from your hand. And if it's normal or special summoned, you can add to your hand one of your branded spell or traps that is banished or in your deck or graveyard, and then place 1 card from your hand to the bottom of the deck. So this essentially gives you a theoretical grind game because of the fact that you are able to recycle the branded spell or traps that could end up getting banished. If you end up banishing something like your Retribution to be able to activate its effect, the Springen's Kit can go ahead and add that back. So there are just a myriad of different ways in which you can utilize the Springen's Kit. I think that 1 copy is just nice to be able to have in a pinch. I'm playing 1 copy of Tri-Brigade Mercurier, which is just a searchable interruption that you can have access to. It says when your opponent activates a monster effect while you control a fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz, which they all will, spoilers. You can quick effect send this card from the hand or face-up field to the grave to go ahead and negate that effect, which is just always good. And if it is banished, you could add 1 from the deck to your hand, a Fallen of Albaz, or a monster that mentions it. So that is actually a pretty good combo starter in conjunction with something like Gold Sarcophagus, which we are playing, because you could go ahead and just send them a courier to go ahead and get access to Engine from there. So I do like 1 of it. I don't necessarily think you need another, especially since it is searchable off of something like your, let's see here. Did I choose to play it in this variant of the build? Not sure, but if we do, we'll get to it, and I'll go ahead and show that off as well. I'm playing one Despian Tragedy, so if this card is sent to the grave or banished by card effect, you can add one Despia monster from the deck to your hand. So that is great at just, again, getting you access to your Aliber in a pinch. So that is great because, again, we're playing the Gold Sark, so it'll trigger off of that. We are playing the Foolish Burial, which will also go ahead and trigger that as well. So, yeah, definitely want to have access to Tragedy for that utility. I'm also choosing to play 3 copies of Albion, the Shrouded Dragon, just a really strong card all around because it's kind of a pseudo upstart goblin. It becomes Fallen of Albaz while on the field or in the grave. If this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can send one Fallen of Albaz or Branded Speller Trap from your hand or deck to the grave to go ahead and apply the following effects. If it's from the hand, you would special summon it, but if it's from the deck, you could go ahead and place this card at the bottom of the deck, and then if you place this card from your hand, you draw 1 card. So that is really good because it means that you are cycling for either potential additional engine or just other useful cards that you can use to continue to combo. So being able to send a Branded Speller Trap from the deck to the graveyard is good because if you already have a way to be able to get Branded Fusion into the graveyard, you could go ahead and send the Retribution to banish itself to add that Branded Fusion to your hand, and there you have access to your combo. So as you can see, it really is just kind of dependent on the hand in order to determine how your plays are going to go throughout the turn. And so that is why you'll notice that a lot of Branded is really just engine. You don't necessarily want to clog with playing too many pieces of non-engine just because you really do need to be able to see access to a lot of different cards that'll help you to get your combo going. Your combo is really going to be used for obviously establishing a board, but also breaking your opponent's board. And Albion is just a really nice card to be able to help you to do so. So for some of the non-engine we're choosing to play, but is also pseudo-engine, is 3 copies of Bestial Saronir. Just really good in the metagame as a whole, Bestials as a whole, because it can target a later dark in either grave and banish it, which is just nice because it is interruption for your opponent's graveyard. And if you do, you could special summon this card from the hand. It's a quick effect if your opponent controls a monster. So a well-timed Bestial can end up hurting your opponent in many different instances. But the reason it's particularly good in Branded is because of the secondary effect, where if it is sent to the grave, you can send a Bestial or 1 Branded Speller Trap from the deck to the graveyard. So again, there are so many different ways that you can trigger cards in the graveyard to be able to get access to your combo. So the Saronir just so happens to be a really good hand trap that is really good for Branded in particular. I am choosing to also play 1 copy of Bestial Druis Worm, just because it is, again, a really strong interruption. This one in particular says if it's sent from the field to the grave, you could target 1 special summon monster your opponent controls and send it to the graveyard. We're playing 1 copy of Bestial Magnamut. Again, like all the Bestials, it targets a light or dark in either grave, banishes it, and special summons itself from the hand. This one in particular says if this card is special summoned, you can activate its effect to, during the end phase, add a dragon monster from the deck or graveyard to the hand, which again will be able to help you get access to your engine. So whether you want to add your Fallen of Albaz, etc., etc. So yeah, I think that Magnamut is well positioned in this deck. So, obviously it's at 1, but, not sure if we would play more than 1, even if it wasn't at 1 in the current meta. And then we're also playing Bestial Lubellion. This is a unique Bestial in that it has a slightly different utility for this deck. Generally, we're actually sending this off of Branded Fusion because once it's in the graveyard, there are a myriad of different ways in which you will be able to make this card become live. It says it must be special summoned from your hand or graveyard, which a lot of the times it will be in the grave because we're sending it off of the Branded Fusion. And then it can be done special summoned by tributing one level 6 or higher Dark Dragon monster. So you have fusions that meet this criteria. You have several main deck cards that meet this criteria. You can only summon it once per turn that way. However, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard and add one bestial monster from the deck to your hand except itself. And then during the main phase, you could take a branded continuous spell or trap from the deck and place it face up onto the field. So that is going to get you access to your branded Lost, which is just a fantastic and powerful card that you have at your disposal. So yeah, Bestial Lubellion is a very nice tech to be able to play in branded. And for the final main deck monster, we are choosing to play 3 copies of Nibiru the Primal Being. The structure deck just so happens to come with a copy of Nibiru, and Nibiru is always going to be a card your opponent has to respect. Sometimes they end up playing into it. So yeah, it's one of the only kind of like traditional hand traps that the deck is playing to be able to make it so that if your opponent does overextend and they end up summoning too many times, you at least have a contingency to be able to help protect yourself in those instances. Branded does have a really good time at being able to break boards, but if you don't necessarily have a board to break, it makes it that much easier for you to be able to make a comeback. So 3 Nibiru, in my opinion, is a must, especially with 3 copies of the deck. So like I mentioned, that is it for the main monsters. Now for the deck, the spells that we're playing, and we're playing a high number of them. As shown off earlier, we are playing Gold Sark and Foolish for the Mercurier, as well as the Tragedy. So just really good at being able to, again, get you access to the combo pieces that you need. We are also playing 2 copies of Branded Fusion. Now, something tells me that this card may very well end up coming back to 3 one day. Currently, it is at 2 in the TCG, but we're going to use it no matter what. There are many ways to be able to get access to it, so it's not as if it's the end of the world that it's at 2 copies, and Branded was still doing just fine with the 1. Even when it was at 1, we were still playing the deck with no issues. So obviously it is super powerful. You can fusion summon a fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz as material from your extra deck using 2 monsters from your hand, deck, or field. You cannot special summon from the extra deck except fusions the turn you activate this card, but that is perfectly okay because literally every single card in the extra deck is a fusion monster, so that restriction is not relevant to you. So yeah, Branded Fusion, it's Branded Fusion. One of the most powerful fusion spells ever created, and it really does help to get the entire deck going. So yeah, 2 Branded Fusion. Hopefully one day it'll come back to 3. We're also playing the 1 copy of Branded in red. You can target a Despia or Fallen of Albaz in the grave, add it to your hand, and then apply the following effect to fusion summon 1 level 8 or higher fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials mentioned from it. From the hand or field. It cannot attack directly this turn, but that is perfectly okay. So a lot of the times, this is something that you could just end up setting on the end phase to go ahead and fusion summon on your opponent's turn. So like being able to play the 1 copy, just in case. And as I mentioned earlier, we are playing the Branded Lost. It is something that is searchable off of the Bestial Lubellion. It says, most importantly, the activation of your cards and effects that includes an effect that fusion summons a fusion monster cannot be negated. Also, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects when a monster is fusion summoned this way. So in a nutshell, the entire deck is trying to fusion summon and activate the effects of fusion summon monsters as much as possible. With Branded Lost, it means that you are adding protection to prevent your opponent from being able to interact with you when you are going and utilizing your various fusion monsters effects. So once you have Branded Lost in play, it makes it incredibly difficult for your opponent to be able to do anything about your monster's effects. So it is very powerful for that protection that it provides, but it does also have another effect where if you fusion summon a fusion monster which you're going to be doing a lot, you can add a Fallen of Albaz or a monster that mentions it from the deck to your hand. So that's really nice for being able to add something like a Mercurier, because it does mention the Fallen of Albaz to your hand, which will serve as an additional interruption on your opponent's turn, right? So Branded Lost, it's a continuous spell, so it's going to, once you get it onto the field, your opponent is going to definitely want to get rid of it as soon as possible, or else it's going to be a thorn in their side for the entirety of the duel. I'm also playing 3 copies of Fusion Deployment. It says reveal a fusion monster from the extra deck and special summon from your hand or deck one of the fusion materials whose name is mentioned on that monster. Also, you cannot special summon from the extra deck except fusions. Again, the downside is negligible considering the entire extra deck is fusion based. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the things you're going to want to do is use that to get access to the Blazing Cartesia, because of the fact that it does mention the Fallen of Albaz. It is, well, it's mentioned specifically on the Grand Guignol, excuse me. So this is essentially a way of being able to cheat out the Blazing Cartesia, and is really nice because then, of course, it'll give you access to quick effect fusion summoning. So Fusion Deployment, it's just something that you have to play. And the alternate art is just absolutely stunning. So yeah, 3 copies is a must in Branded. And of course, we're playing 3 copies of the brand new card, the Fallen and the Virtuous. I am still trying to wrap my head around all of the utility that this card provides. In a nutshell, the most important thing to note is that it is a quick effect that says you can send a monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz from the extra deck to the graveyard to target a face-up card on the field and destroy it. That is really good at obviously breaking your opponent's board, being an interruption to your opponent, but because it's sending monsters that include Fallen of Albaz from the extra deck, it is going to trigger a myriad of different monsters from your graveyard to trigger their effects in the end phase. So the Fallen and Virtuous is just an incredible piece of support from the deck. And there is just so many different combos that are opened up because of this, that honestly, it is just something that is still going above my head at this time. But I do know, just for that utility of being able to, potentially use it to interrupt your opponent, or even to act as a way to be able to dodge targeted effect negation, targeted destruction against your own monsters to ensure that your effects go off, is also something else that you can use to make it so that your effects are that much more likely to go off. So yeah, this is definitely a 3 of, in my opinion. And yeah, there's not really much more else to say. It's a fantastic card. I'm also playing 3 copies of Branded Opening. You can go ahead and discard a card, take a Despia monster from your deck, and either add it to your hand or special summon it in defense position. For the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except for fusions. If a fusion monster you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you could banish this card from the grave instead. So that is also just really nice protection. What's nice is that it is a quick effect, so you can go ahead and use this card in the standby phase to go ahead and play around certain pieces of interaction that your opponent might have. So yeah, and the fact that you can go ahead and either add the Despia monster to the hand or special summon it means that you can go ahead and play around cards like the different kind of pseudo maxi types of cards, like Fuelos, Perulia, and the such. So yeah, I think that Branded Opening is just a really good piece of consistency for the deck. I'm also choosing to play 3 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust. This is just a way for you to be able to get access, another way for you to get access to your Branded Fusion in the event that your opponent interacts with you with a monster effect on their turn, because it says that you can then go ahead and set a normal spell or trap from your deck if your opponent did activate a monster effect, which is useful for being able to grab something like a Nadir Servant. And if you already have access to your Branded Fusion, you could add a Fusion Duplication, which, spoiler, we're also choosing to play. So yeah, Triple Tactics Thrust, a very powerful card and a much needed reprint that we are happy to play 3 of in our Branded deck. I'm choosing to play 3 copies of Branded in High Spirits as well. You can go ahead and reveal a monster in the hand and send a level 8 fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard with the same type that has 2500 attack or defense, which, you know, spoiler, most of them do. You could then discard the revealed monster, and if you do, add a Fallen of Albaz or a monster that mentioned it from the deck to your hand. During the end phase, if a fusion monster was sent to the grave this turn, you could add this card from the grave to your hand, which you can then use for follow-up or you can use for discard fodder. It really is just a nice card all around to have. You know, the fact that it can add a monster that mentions it means that this can also get you access to, you know, Springing's Kit, for example, you know, which is a good play to have at your disposal. So Branded High Spirits is just a very good card, very versatile. So yeah, definitely want to play 3. And we are going ahead to play 3 copies of Nadir Servant. So this card is just strong all around because of it says that you could send a monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, which will go ahead and trigger all of the you know, different extra deck monsters that you have to go ahead and add a Dogmatica monster or a Fallen of Albaz from the deck or graveyard to your hand that has attack less than or equal to the attack of that sent monster. So this is just really good as a whole because it can get you access to your Quem, and if you already have access to that, then you could go ahead and you know, send the Fallen of Albaz. And this is something that you want to use basically at the end of your combo, you know, because a lot of the strength of the deck is that it does have the capacity to play on your opponent's turn. So worst case, if you do get interrupted to the degree where you can't necessarily do the full combo on your turn, Nadir Servant is kind of like a contingency plan that you can utilize at the end of your combo to at least have access to some plays. So I personally like the playing the 3 Nadir Servant, even though we aren't playing like some of the other usual suspects like the Maximus, for example. But in my opinion, it is still just really good because of that utility to send monsters from the extra deck to the graveyard. And then for our traps, we are playing a copy of Fusion Duplication. It is something that is searchable off of your thrust, which can go ahead and target a fusion or polymerization normal or quick play spell in either grave, banish it, and then apply that spell's effect. So essentially, this means that you can utilize Branded Fusion on your opponent's turn, which is incredibly powerful. And we're playing the 1 Retribution. I've kind of alluded to it multiple times in the profile. It is a counter trap that says when a spell or trap or monster effect is activated that includes an effect that special summons a monster, return to the extra deck 1 face-up fusion monster you control or 2 fusion monsters in your graveyard that mention Fallen of Albaz as material, and if you do, negate the activation and destroy that card. So it also says that you can banish this from the grave, target a branded spell or trap in your grave, and then add it to your hand. So that allows you to, there are so many instances in which you can send the fusion, the branded fusion to the graveyard. And if you're able to get this into the graveyard, you can banish it to add the branded fusion to your hand. So it is really good to be able to use as a counter trap. It is also good at being able to have the utility in the graveyard. So it is just a solid trap all around. So guys, that's it for the main deck. To quickly go over the extra deck, we are playing 2 copies of the usual suspects, the Mirror Jade, the Ice Blade Dragon. It says you can only control 1 of it, but once per turn, quick effect, you could send a fusion monster from your extra deck to the grave, then banish 1 monster on the field. This card cannot use this effect during the next turn. If this fusion summoned card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you could destroy all monsters your opponent controls during the end phase of the turn. So kind of like a pseudo board wipe in that instance that only affects your opponent's monsters. So yeah, Mirror Jade is just fantastic. You do definitely want to play 2 copies, in my opinion, just because there are going to be times where you might want to use it just as part of your combo. on your turn. But what's nice about it is that it is a soft once per turn. So you can go ahead and use its effect, and then if you end up reviving the Mirror Jade, you can get access to its effect a second time on your opponent's turn. So it is really good to just kind of have two in rotation. So that is why you want to play 2 copies, in my opinion. We're also playing 2 copies of Albion the Branded Dragon. If it's fusion summoned, you can fusion summon a level 8 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials mentioned on it from your hand, field, and or grave. During the end phase, if it's in the grave because it was sent there this turn, you could add to your hand or set a branded spell or trap from your deck. So we are playing a myriad of different cards that you can go ahead and set off of this card. So yeah, it is just an incredible card that you could either go into for your combo to be able to fusion summon into something like your Mirror Jade, or to be able to send off of something like your Nadir Servant or a myriad of other cards that send cards from the extra deck to the grave to get the ability to set a branded spell or trap. So 2 Albion is really strong. I'm also choosing to play 2 Lubellion the Searing Dragon, which is just good at recurring resources because you can shuffle fusion materials on it from the deck from monsters on the field, grave, and or face-up banished cards back into the deck. So that is just really good because you are going to be banishing a lot. So being able to have access to a card that will be able to recur cards specifically from the banish zone is nice. It can be costly in the fact that you have to discard a card in order to do so. And card advantage is something that you really want to make sure that you are paying attention to with this deck. So Lubellion is going to be one of those cards where, I might even consider swapping one out for a 3rd copy of Albion just because of the fact that, it might not be necessary to go into a grind game that deeply, especially in a 3 structure deck version of the deck. We're playing 2 copy of Grand Guignol, the Dust Dragon, more so for just ensuring that our fusion deployment in the late game has an additional target. If it's fusion summoned, you could send a level 6 or higher light or dark monster from the deck or extra deck to the grave. And if a monster is special summoned by your opponent, activated monster effect, you can banish this card from your field or grave, special summon a Dogmatica monster from your deck, or 1 Despia monster from your extra deck. So we are not necessarily, playing Despia monsters in the extra. One of the recommendations I was going to make, to be able to take full advantage of the Grand Guignol is to play something like a Despia Despian Quiritus, which is just a very powerful card that you can utilize to summon off of the Grand Guignol. So that was going to be a recommendation that I make if you were to power up this version of the deck. But yeah, just a very strong card to be able to have in rotation. So yeah, 2 copies, in my opinion, are needed, especially if we're choosing to max out on the fusion deployments. So we're also playing 2 copies of the Dragon that Devours the Dogma, the new card that the deck has access to, and it is a very powerful one. One of the strengths of the card is the fact that it says if it during the end phase, if it's in the grave because it was sent there, you can go ahead and add a Dogmatica or Tri-Brigade card from the deck to your hand, which allows you to add, is just another way that you can add Mercurier to your hand to act as interruption for your opponent. So yeah, definitely want to play 2 copies. And then we are playing a kind of a vast majority of extra deck cards that you can use that have utility in the graveyard. So we're playing the Brigand, the Sprind, the Rinbrum, the Alba Lenatus, and the Titaniclad. All of these have effects where you could go ahead and add cards, from the graveyard. They all serve their own function. So they all need to be fusion summoned with the Fallen of Albaz, and this can be used for a level 8 or higher monster. You could use a monster special summoned, an effect monster special summoned this turn. You could use a Beast, Beast Warrior, or Wing Beast, 1 Dragon monster, or one monster with 2,500 attack or more. So Albalanatus in particular is really good because you can actually special summon it by sending the above cards from any monster zones to the graveyard, which can catch some people off guard because of the fact that you're contact fusing with your opponent's cards in particular. This one says that you can, if it was sent to the grave, you can add a polymerization normal or fusion normal spell from the deck to your hand. So obviously that is really good. The Titaniclad in particular is a card that during the end phase, if it was sent there this turn, you could add to your hand or special summon a Dogmatica or Fallen of Albaz from your deck. Being able to get access to that special summon can be something where you can end up special summoning the Fallen of Albaz into your opponent's field and fusion summoning with their monsters. The Rinbrum, the Striking Dragon, is really good. Again, it has an ability where if it's in the grave, you could quick effect target a Fallen of Albaz in your grave and special summon either that monster or this card, or banish the other. So again, the fact that this deck allows you to use your end phase as if it was another main phase, so to speak, makes it so that there are so many different plays that you have at your disposal, and that is why Branded is just such a high ceiling deck, because you always have to, mitigate the kind of benefits that many of these different extra deck monsters have for you, and it's really just dependent on the game state at that time. Sprined is actually another powerful card. If it's in the grave because it was sent there, you can add to your hand or special summon a Springans or Fallen of Albaz from your deck. So again, that's another reason why we're playing the Springans kit. And we're, last but not least, playing the Glory Dragon. This is if it's in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can add to your hand or special summon a Tri-Brigade or one Fallen of Albaz from your deck. So, guys, that has been a very long profile, and that is because the Branded strategy is not linear whatsoever. In my opinion, it has so many different types of plays at its disposal, and there are so many cards and so many different types of effects that you just need to make sure that you are aware of at all different times. This deck is able to be played at a myriad of different numbers of cards. It's one of the few decks that, because we're playing so much engine, you don't necessarily want to play it at 40 copies, which at 40 cards. There are so many decks in the game where you want the consistency, and so you want to get as close to 40 cards as possible, and yet Branded breaks the mold. It is one of those decks where I've seen 45 cards, 50 cards, even 60 card variants, and they're all kind of relevant in their own way. 60 card variants are usually ones that play copies of That Grass Looks Greener. The fact remains that because you're playing so much kind of mandatory engine, it is okay for you to be able to go over that 40 card threshold, and I very much encourage people to play around with the ratios. The ratios that I've shown off might not necessarily be the ones that work for you, and so it really just depends on the player preference in a lot of these instances, but you really can't go wrong, with any of those different types of cards that you want to be able to play. One of the things that I noticed was, and one of the reasons why I'm not choosing to play Super Polymerization, is that there are not a lot of generic options to use. This was very much a card that I was going back and forth on as a card that I wanted to play, but because the deck does not have access to Garura, cards that you can use to actually fuse off your opponent's monsters on, if you're going second, is why I opted out of using the Super Polymerization in the first place. Now, going first, there's still utility because obviously you could use it to fuse your own monsters, but I think that Super Poly is more renowned for breaking boards rather than being used as just a polymerization, so to speak. So if there was a recommendation I'd give to power the deck up, it would definitely be to grab cards like Garua. That would be very beneficial. Mud Dragon of the Swamp, cards like that are generic pieces of fusions that you can use to help break boards with the Super Polymerization. But honestly, guys, the deck really does have a majority of everything that you would need to really, make the deck tick. One of the other cards I considered playing, and maybe it's just a side deck card, is a card like the Black Goat Laughs, because it is searchable off of the Triple Tactics Thrust. There are so many different cards that you can play to tech, but in my opinion, this is a build that, I think that you can be successful with. Try it out, and I encourage you to play around with different tech cards, different types of ratios for the deck to find something that suits you. So guys, if you're still around until this point, you are an absolute real one. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, GG.